What's up, guys? It is Tuesday, June 18th. I'm Andrew. I've got Bobby with me, and that means we are here to talk some CFL early in the week. We're not going to talk games on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday when all the good lines are gone. We'll try and get you guys on the right side of some of these numbers here on a Tuesday. So, Bobby, welcome in, man. Good to see you as always. What were your thoughts on week 2?
Well, do you want to go through game by game? Because I got thoughts on.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I was just kind of saying what's up, but go right ahead. What do you think about what was the first game we saw last week was Winnipeg, Ottawa, right?
Yeah, Winnipeg, Ottawa. It started out open, 6.5 and stuck around there all week. And then on game day, I was able to grab an 8.5 on the Red Blacks, all caps. Ended up closing at 7, but it kind of just shows there were a few games this last week where there was huge movement either on the day before or game day. So like if you're waiting for a specific number, chances are you're going to get a chance to grab it. So they seem to be fairly active, a lot more active than last year, if I remember. So that's just one thing to keep in mind if you see lines moving. And I kind of got burned on this later in the weekend. But if you see lines moving, it usually doubles down on game day. So I found that interesting. In terms of the game itself, I don't know. It's the 2022 Red Blacks are back. You've got a great kick returner. You've got a solid defense and maybe got a little bit better offense, but I don't know. I gave them a bit of an upgrade. I still think they're the worst team in the league. It looks like Devontae Dedmon won't be the only guy scoring for these guys this year. Mm-hmm. But I think that win for them over Winnipeg, that was more about the Ottawa defense than Winnipeg having any struggles. A lot of people have opinions on Winnipeg. Maybe we could talk about that later on, but it was a good win for Ottawa, I guess. But still, I don't think there's much there. It doesn't look like there's much there yet.
That's interesting you say that because I was going to go the other way, and you said you were kind of giving respect towards Ottawa's defense, and I think it's more so just that we haven't seen a good game from Winnipeg yet. So I guess we're on two different ends of that. I honestly I was a little bit impressed with Ottawa's offense, and I like what you said about the 2022. I mean, their punt returning is so important in the CFL, right? It's not like the NFL. You need to have good special teams at all fronts, and you can have a guy that can get you 20, 30 yards and not just get tackled within moments of catching the ball. It makes a huge difference. I will say, full transparency for the purposes of the show, I lost with the over. It was a tough one. I'm texting you. We're 45 minutes delay, waiting for the game to come back. They march the field, get to the 7-yard line, and they have 3 tries to get me a touchdown. 3 tries. And this is the thing that I don't understand is that on not one of those plays did they try and go for a short pass and let the player make a move afterwards. And I know that I'm known to complain about that, and I get it because if you don't get it, the clock could tick, right? But if you go for the end zone and you miss, it's just a new play, and I understand that. But as someone with an over ticket, we saw a couple end zone plays, red zone drives turn into 3, which I probably thought could have been 6 or 7, and they turn into 3. So disappointing. Just another catastrophic, typical CFL game, though, where, I mean, you were messaging me, you tweeted out just such a typical CFL thing to happen where they go into a 45-minute delay with 2 minutes on the clock. Mike O'Shea, not happy. He wanted the game to continue. Obviously, they're just following regulations. But it's too bad that it had to go and happen with 2 minutes to go into the game. But, you know, let's jump into this because I feel like I saw you on Twitter, and I always get a kick out of the way you talk about the power ratings, power rankings. Winnipeg right now, how do you feel about them? Because all I've learned my whole entire time I've been handicapping and betting on sports is that when you're betting on a team, you need to recognize what they've done so far this season, but you also still have to stick to your guns with your preseason rankings, which is why I really liked BC last week. And I understand they barely covered, but after Calgary put up 32, the public bet them down and thinking, wow, Calgary's going to be a great team this year is a gut overreaction. What are your thoughts on the overreaction we're seeing in the CFL community to Winnipeg right now?
Well, everywhere you look, at least everywhere I look on X, if they've got Winnipeg as the worst team in the league, including the CFL rankings. Now that's fine. I don't mind if you want to kind of have that opinion, but I don't think they're kind of embracing the definition of a power ranking. Maybe they need to call it something else, because power rankings are used to determine who's going to win a matchup. And you have the league, you have all the fans on this side saying Winnipeg's the worst. Yeah, it's fun to say that, seeing how they've been the last few years. Like, they've been one of the best teams and the best team in the league for the past few years. But then there's people like the sports books who take money from 99% of the people that use them. They're not booking Winnipeg like they're the worst team in the league. They're still favored this week. So I think I don't like the words power rankings being used for this kind of stuff. I don't know. They're not exactly standings. Usually they are standings too, which is a whole other argument.
That's what they should call it. You're right. It's like recency bias and standings. People that are working for the CFL socials and people that are making these votes, you might as well just call it the recency bias poll or the recent standings, because it's not like people are so quick to adjust their power rankings. What's the point of calling it a power ranking if 1 week can change your opinion entirely about a team? That's what I don't like, right?
Yeah, you shouldn't be seeing these big 5 position swings on your power rankings. You should have a good grasp of where you're at. You make adjustments, but you're not adjusting like we saw what the adjustments, the overreaction did for the Argos over the offseason, right? They have 10, 15-point adjustment based on what? A quarterback and a couple of losses. So these teams don't go from best to worst in a couple weeks. And I still have Winnipeg as I don't have them as the best team in the league, but they're definitely still in the top tier in my opinion. I'm going to bet them that way, and good for the people that have been betting against them. I'm sure they've done very well. I haven't seen many winning tickets being posted like you'd usually expect.
Yeah.
But I think there's three kind of tiers in this league. There's a top 4, there's a middle 3, and then there's the bottom 2, which have been the bottom 2 for quite a long time. So I just take offense, I guess, to the word power rankings being used for this, but I try not to get into it. There's some people that get good engagement with it. And at the end of the day, it's not a fact. You can back it up with your own cash on the sports books, but I don't want to get too worked up about it because it is good content for CFL, I guess.
Yeah, it's good to see people all up in arms, and it's good to see people. I mean, the fact is just like any league, even though it's only a 9-man league. I'm not sure if you're in that CFL fan Facebook page, the huge one, but people love to go after Winnipeg. They love to see Winnipeg lose. It's the same reason why I was cheering for the Mavericks against the Celtics. I wanted the underdog to win, and I knew they didn't really have a chance to win, but I wanted the underdog to win. People love to see the favorite sometimes get knocked off, and obviously Winnipeg's been so good for so many years now. And, we talk about good teams win, great teams cover. That's that old adage, the old cliche. Let's go to Montreal, Edmonton, 23-20. It was the second straight road game for Edmonton. I got the backdoor cover. We got the backdoor cover, and you were on it, I believe, as well, right? The Elks. So we both cashed that together. And, this is the thing. People use the expression right side winner, wrong side winner, and you have to be honest with yourself. I think that it was a right side, even though it was a backdoor. I mean, McLeod Bethel-Thompson with 2 interceptions late in the game. You look at the yardage, you look at the defensive plays. I thought the Elks actually looked decent out there, Bobby. I really did.
Yeah, and I had this game lined a little closer to pick. I think I think Montreal was the better team, but I jumped on the Elks. The middle of week 1 when they posted these lines, and I was surprised by the time kickoff. I had a good ticket. I had some closing line value in my pocket, even with Montreal taking out Winnipeg in the week before and Edmonton doing Edmonton kind of things in week 1. So the number did kind of come down to Edmonton on game day. My bad, what I thought was going to be a bad 4.5 turned out to have some closing line value and turned out to be a winning pick. But There's a few things that happened in this game. And the first was this Antwi fake punt, third and 15, fake punt. And nobody knows why. Nobody knows what's going on. The Alouettes beat reporter, oh, what is that? Like, this guy's in on it. Okay, we know what he's doing. I'm not a smart man, but I know what an onside punt is, at least after seeing it 3 times last year. So it was pretty clear that they were trying that onside punt, the dribble kick over the line of scrimmage for 1 yard, recover it, but the play kind of blew up on them. So they ended up just making it look like one of the worst play calls of the year, which it wasn't. And Jason Moss isn't one of the coaches that would make a bad call like that. I think it was a smart play that kind of fell apart. And I find it very interesting that the Alouettes beat reporters, the ones who are with them all the time, are the ones saying, "Oh my goodness, I have no idea what was going on in that play." So
supposed to have their back. They're
I don't know. You can see kind of right through. You just act natural when you're trying to play dumb, I guess.
Yeah.
But like you said, I don't think these teams were too far apart. Edmonton had that bad drop in the fourth quarter, looked like a likely touchdown, and then maybe the worst quarterback sneak attempt of the year. I looked it up. It was a 3-yard loss, but like that just lost the game for them. It was a huge swing. These teams were a lot closer in reality. I appreciate Purifoy running out that missed field goal to save our 4.5. It's not the right play to win. And it looked like he wasn't even supposed to be on the field to receive that. So I think it was about almost a year ago today where I saw Edmonton do something a little strange with a missed punt or a long kickoff that cost them the game. And I think this decision didn't cost them the game in one play, but it was just another bad decision made by a kick returner. So but I definitely won't complain about this McLeod backdoor touchdown. And hey, he led the league in passing, and usually it was in scenarios like this.
Right. I mean, that's the thing, though. You look at it, and for us, we're happy. The backdoor touchdown for the cover. But if you look at his numbers here, 300 yards, 2 interceptions. You know, I mean, we're talking about field goal kicks, like, is we got Boris Beatty 2 for 2, longest was 48 yards, and even the commentators, who I try not to always take too serious, I like to keep my own opinions, but they're saying, when do we see Trey Ford this season? And they paid so much money for MBT. I still think I know I made jokes about him at the start of the year. I still think he's a good quarterback. I think you can kind of like feel, even like just watching, that he's like a leader. He has that kind of confidence about him, that there's no hesitation. He believes in himself and he can lead the team. But I thought that was kind of interesting for us to see the backdoor cover come through, even though it was 2 second-half interceptions. It makes us think, number one, that this Edmonton team won't go away, which I think as bettors, it's good for point spreads, because they're going to continue to, they might be a team that can, cover spreads like this. And again, like last week, I said, for the most part, this is the point spread range I'm going to want them in for that reason. Something else I noticed, though, and this is the second time I mentioned it, it's only 1-1, I believe, so far this year. But last year, the Edmonton Elks had one of the worst rushing defenses. Walter Fletcher with 82 yards just off 12 carries, 1 touchdown. Longest rush was for 39 yards for the Alouettes. Of course, Fajardo ran for 27 yards himself. And we saw a couple guys as well that, like Julian Grant and Philpott even catch, like a 3 or 4 yard toss and turn it into something. So from the prop betting perspective, for anybody interested in that, I'm not a huge CFL props guy, but I always say, if it ain't broke, we're not going to try and fix it. And that's one that I'm going to keep looking at, is looking at the running backs that are facing the Edmonton Elks. Their secondary seems okay, but they just cannot stop the run to save their lives. It hasn't been good for them at all. Walter Fletcher was impressive, though. Overall, any thoughts on Fajardo? We talked about MBT. Any thoughts on Fajardo?
I think he's a good CFL quarterback.
Yeah, I know you're getting him. You're making me like him a little bit, but the thing is, I'm still in the belief that they've got that great defense, and I'm not saying that, hey, he's not good. I just mean that when you have a defense like that, it makes you feel a hell of a lot better. I saw a quote from Kevin Gausman for the Blue Jays pretty much saying, with the batting lineup we have right now, as a pitcher, you feel that much more pressure. And if you think about it, if you're a quarterback for a team like the Alouettes with the defense they have, how much pressure are you feeling? If you know your defense is so good, you don't feel as much pressure. So maybe I'm just a Fajardo hater and we didn't even know it, but I still think he's good. I just think their defense is one of the reasons why they're so strong.
They look a lot like I think it was the 99 Bucks and the 2000 Ravens. And they might have had the same quarterback. And I'm not going to compare Cody Fajardo.
Yeah. Just good deep. I mean, look, we're going to find out what kind of team they are this week. I'm interested to see that matchup. But let's finish things off. BC and Calgary, you were at the game. I'm wearing the jersey. McGinnis had a big game. My long-lost cousin, who I've never met yet. And they got the job done with the backdoor cover. Any thoughts and takeaways from that game?
Yeah, I just realized you're wearing a BC jersey. I'm wearing a Cape Breton hoodie here. So, I thought those teams were closer than the touchdown kind of reflected on the spread. Calgary had a few drops, bad turnover near the end of the game. I think these teams were pretty close. I think that says more about Calgary being kind of better than we thought than BC being worse. I still think BC is a good team. So, like you said, that backdoor cover, Sean White, 47-yard field goal, up 6, 30 seconds left. If that's any other kicker in the league, maybe that's a Calgary touchdown and a complete flip-flop of this game. So good backdoor cover, I guess. I'm glad I wasn't on it. I was just enjoying the day.
Yeah, I was enjoying the day a lot more after that backdoor cover hit. So you don't want your mood to live and die off your wins and losses. But I was already having a fun night, and then that bet made it a little more fun. Dedrick Mills with 46 yards, 11 carries, longest was 16. Jalen Philpott with 10 for Calgary. The rushing game not great for them, but we saw 339 passing yards from Jake Mayer, 2 TDs, 1 interception. This Calgary team could very well in the future be an over team, I think, and also could be a good prop betting team because they like to sling the ball, like to throw deep. It seems like Jake Mayer has the green light to throw the deep ball.
Yeah, definitely. He's kind of bounced back to where he was when he replaced one of the great quarterbacks of all time in Bo Levi Mitchell. So good for him. He kind of struggled the past couple of years, but it seems like he's can't do anything wrong so far this year, even though the wins and losses aren't adding up all the way.
And then the next one, you just talked about Bo Levi Mitchell. You and I were head-to-head on this one, Hamilton and Saskatchewan. It's the first of a doubleheader, a home and home. Crazy game overall. A big offensive game. It's I don't know what the theme is right now, but it's back-to-back Sunday games. The teams with the most rest putting up a ton of points. 33-30 final. Talk about people overreacting. What could you react to, and what do you think people will overreact to as far as that game?
Well, the first thing leading into it is again, for the second week in a row, there was a lot of money on Saskatchewan. So this game opened 2.5, Hamilton favored at home, and they ended up being a three-point dog as we went up to kickoff. So same thing happened last week with the Riders in Edmonton, and that's kind of a trend that I'm going to keep an eye on at least this week as well, as we have the rematch coming up. But these Riders, man, like the same thing as the first week, same thing as last year. Stupid penalties, holds on kick returns, misconduct penalties. They got called for a weird one with the helmet coming off. Fair enough. But when you've taken a bunch of stupid penalties before then, it's kind of hard to take. And just when you think you couldn't decide which penalty was the worst, they take an offside where the guy's half a yard offside. Now, in spite of all of that, I was kind of writing my notes for today, and I was saying, you know what, these guys are going to lose by a touchdown, but I'm still going to upgrade them because I think they're choosing to be bad by taking these penalties. This isn't a talent issue. Trevor Harris is playing great. But luckily, I don't have to justify it anymore because no matter how hard the Riders tried to lose that game, the Ticats wouldn't let them. So that's why I'm not going to brag about any backdoor covers, because when you're on the right side of games, in my opinion, there's a way more bad beats like this one that come and smack you right in the face. So this was my first kind of outright loss of the season, and I couldn't have asked for a better way to have it all blow up in my face.
Well, I mean, look, that's says a lot about how successful you are with your CFL betting if that's a loss that you have. I mean, you're spot on with your thoughts and your reads with the market, and you know, I trust your opinion, and I looked at the game overall, and I didn't like it enough for it to end up being a client release, a best bet release for me. And for the record, for people out there, you know, sometimes the plays I have where I do videos on, or I do little small write-ups on, those sometimes are client plays, but this one just didn't make the card. I had a strong opinion on Thursday, I had a strong opinion on Friday, and I had an opinion on Saturday that I liked with BC. So I decided to stay on the sidelines with the official play. So it was my smallest bet of the weekend and probably smallest bet of the season. But again, something I want to mention, and I know it's not going to be easy like this every time. And I know I don't want to get excited, but CFL live betting is so much different than NFL live betting. The 2 and out, it can happen so quick. It really can. I mean, I keep on telling some people this. If you're looking for an opportunity, I was able to get Saskatchewan plus 10.5, and I got them plus 7.5 as well. I did not think they were going to win the ball game. I didn't have too much money on them to win the game. I certainly had more money at plus 10.5 than I did at the money line price. The reaction that you see from these algorithms with the live bets, it's almost like it's the same algorithm as if they're playing in the NFL with 4 downs, excuse me. It's not hard to score a touchdown, kick the ball away, get a stop, get the ball back, and march the field again and get 3 even. And that's a 10-point swing in the matter of a handful of minutes. So it's something certainly worth looking out for. I know you do dabble with the live bets. And again, for people out there, live betting can be dangerous for some people, and you want to be careful with it. But if you're aware of the opening number, you're aware of where the line closed, and then you look at some of these bets that you can get in game. As you mentioned, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, they closed as faves. At some books, minus 1.5, and then all of a sudden you can get plus 10.5. Did you have any live betting in the game or overall this past weekend?
Yeah, especially this one. So, like you said, this is an algorithm that's most likely designed for, I don't know, probably college football, not NFL, but like it's not designed for the CFL. The Riders were plus 700 at one point in that fourth quarter. Probably worse with a few minutes left, but I guess they took the lines down at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can grab a lot of money at NFL type numbers when in reality, if like what was it, 3.5 minutes left, Hamilton has the ball on their own 40, up by 7, and they lose that game.
Yeah.
NFL doesn't happen. CFL it does. So I think there's some weird numbers. You can kind of make sure you have a few outs available to you because other books are slower than others at making that. And even in the middle of the game, there's opportunities for middles with 1-2 point differences on these books going through key numbers. So I really like live betting, but I just don't think. I think it's just because nobody's figured out the proper way to get this algorithm to work for these books. I don't think there's enough money being bet on CFL for the books to even care, really. So, but great opportunities. I think in every game there's always a great opportunity. So definitely something to keep in mind throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right on the head when you said they just don't care enough, right? The books, they do not care enough. I've had conversations with people from actually FanDuel in New Jersey. I was at the sports book there, brought up CFL. It was in the summer I was visiting. And the guy looked at me like I had 10 heads. Like I was so confused off what I was talking about because he literally looked at me like, why are you talking about the CFL to me? Like, why was I even wasting his time by bringing up Canadian football? Because the bets that we're getting down mean nothing to them. And so until it's significant enough for them to notice, we're going to be able to make some money on. And got to shout out Tommy Unders joining us here live from YouTube. He says, yep, live betting is fantastic for CFL. Was the same with the UFL. So again, these niche leagues. And I tell people all the time, you and I want people to enjoy the CFL. We hope they can fall in love with the league. But if you don't like the product, why don't you at least just make some money on it? You know, maybe you'll like it more if you're making some money on it. And for everybody out there, I mean, you don't know how many times I'll talk to people or I'll meet a friend of a friend, tell them what I do for work. And they're like, oh, what are your favorite 5 picks tomorrow for the NFL? And I'm like, I've got like maybe 1 or 2 I can give you, right? It's the sharpest sport to bet. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm like, let me know in July when you want a CFL pick. I can try and give you one of those. Oh, no, I don't bet the CFL. That's what they say to me, right? I'm like, okay, well, I'm sorry. I can't help you if you don't want a pick that I'm more confident in. He mentioned Milligan has looked amazing in both games this season. Great defensively. Yeah, I think the Riders' defense is interesting to me. I'm curious to see what they can look like moving forward. You mentioned the penalties. I was reading a 3 Down Nation article from head coach Mays, and he was just like, he said, I don't feel like we're 2-0 right now. I mean, the penalties, the comeback losses, comeback wins. Is it a good thing? Of course. I mean, you're not happy with your team, so it means they're definitely practicing tough. But at the same time, they're 2-0. So let's jump into week 3 lines here. We're switching up the books we're using just to prove we have absolutely zero affiliation with any of these sports books. We're going to just use this one because I feel like right now FanDuel has probably the most consensus lines that we can take a look at. Before we jump into the picks, guys, for everybody, for future reference, if you're new to watching us weekly here on X or on YouTube, usually we spend 15 to 20 minutes recapping the week prior. Then we jump into some picks or some possible reads we have on the market. But do us a favor, if you're watching on X, give us a follow. Of course, both of us on our handles, you can see on the screen. Retweet the video on X and subscribe to the channel on YouTube. We're going to be going live every single Tuesday. Every Tuesday, you can find us right here on YouTube, right here on X. And it's really important that you guys catch our videos live on Tuesdays because a lot of the time so far, we've been right about a lot of these moves. And if you're trying to bet CFL on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the lines are much, much different. So without further ado, let's start with Ottawa and Montreal going head-to-head. Montreal's home opener and Ottawa off an upset win over the Blue Bombers. 6.5 now after we saw 7. What are your thoughts here on this one?
Yeah, I don't have much on this one. I think this line's pretty good where it is. If it, you did mention a 7. There's a few of those hanging around. I'm on Red Black 7.5. It opened up in the week. I still like it at 7, I guess. Touchdowns a lot, even in the CFL. So, and the other thing that I kind of keep in mind here is if I'm not a totals guy, but I think the under kind of checks a lot of the boxes of the matrix here. You have 2 good defenses. You have 2 offenses that sure Montreal seems pretty decent, but Ottawa hasn't really proven much themselves. So I think that maybe a lean on the under. Again, that's more of your wheelhouse. I'm just a sides guy. I like Ottawa if you can get the touchdown, and just like the comment here, you always have to sprinkle some money line with all these underdogs winning outright in the CFL so far this season.
What would you say? Obviously, it's different for whatever the point spread is, if it's plus 3.5, plus 6.5, whatever. But what's your advice here? Like if you were just using a unit scale, if you had, let's say, 1 unit on the Red Blacks plus 7.5, what are you doing for the money line? Like 0.25, a quarter unit? What are you putting on the
quarter or a third? Probably closer to a quarter now. So, yeah, but like it's plus 300, right? So it's a great number to hit. These numbers have hit so far this season. So it's been pretty profitable, and it has been profitable in the past. You see these guys, some of these interns promoting these Bombers money line bets every week the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And you get smacked in the face when Montreal goes in there. Not just this year, but I believe the year before they were huge dogs and won outright. So these with all that can change in the CFL, a lot of bounces make a lot of differences, and I feel like the underdogs are more likely to cover than your traditional NFL.
I got a few different ways to look at this, and this might sound like I'm all over the place here. I agree with the undertake, and I like the fact that kind of right now the under 47.5 is the minus 105 side of things. I do think that Montreal, with their home opener, defending Grey Cup champions that didn't get to have their home opener in the first game of the year, they're going to come out with a bang. And what was it that won them the Grey Cup? Sure, they scored a ton of points in that game. They still scored a ton of points in the East Division Finals, but it was their defense that got them to the Grey Cup, the defense that won it for them. So I do think it'll be a big defensive battle. Ottawa takes down Winnipeg. I will say that Drew Brown, I don't think, had to deal with much, I would say, pressure last week. I felt like there were some plays where he was under pressure, but he dealt with it a lot. I do think Montreal's pass rush is going to be a hell of a lot for a quarterback like him to deal with. It's going to be kind of one team feeling good about themselves. And so, again, we'll be curious to see how Ottawa looks. And you've got Montreal coming off that game that, again, it was the backdoor cover from the Elks. Did that game belong to be 23-20? Should it have been a 3-point game? Because, again, MBT with the 2 interceptions, I brought it up 5 times already. Should that game have been more? Should they have lost? I'm not sure, but I do know one thing. Montreal is going to be focused. First game back at home. You know, they start off with 2 games against West teams, and they end up doing very well. I think, to me, this is a game where they're going to be locked in. I like the under 47.5. I could understand taking the Red Blacks at the 7.5. Don't like them as much at 6.5. And with all that being said, I may use the Alouettes as a parlay leg in the money line with somebody this weekend. Whether it's another CFL team, whether it's a UFC, whether it's a golf matchup, whether it's a baseball, I don't know. But I don't think the Alouettes lose this game outright. So I know Tommy Unders gave us the shout out in the chat about taking the Ottawa sprinkle in the money line. I know you mentioned you got to do it, but this to me has one of those feels to it where Ottawa could cover but not win. Like, could be a 6-point win for Montreal, could be a walk-off field goal, something like that. So I have not bet anything yet in this game, but we'll be curious to see where the market shifts on this one. All right, this is the one where I was the most excited to talk to you about. BC and Winnipeg. We talked about the power rankings. We don't want to crap all over anything people are saying, but when it comes down to it, Winnipeg, they're feeling it, right? They're 0-2. Offense hasn't looked great. As I mentioned, I pretty much lost my over last week on Thursday because they had 3 tries on the 7-yard line, couldn't punch it in. That's it. I'm done talking about that. How do you feel about this one? Home game here for them, 2.5. Brady Oliveira sounds like he's still banged up. Dalton Schoen dealing with some injury problems as well. Where are you going in this game?
Yeah, Winnipeg, they're already kind of feeling the injury bug on defense, and they have Kenny Lawler out already too. So I know people aren't they're saying it's not all injuries, but yeah, a little bit of it is injuries. I'm surprised this line hasn't moved towards BC. I'm keeping an eye out. I see a 3 with some juice on Bet Chris. I haven't pulled the trigger on it, but if that 3 becomes more readily available, I'd gladly take the Lions, which I think these are 2 pretty evenly matched teams. BC went in there and beat them up pretty good at the same time last year. Again, like, you can only downgrade Winnipeg so much. I think this number is okay where it is, but between these 2 teams, I'm going to take the 3, whichever way it goes.
You know, in any sport, whenever you see a line that doesn't make any sense, usually the team that's on the side of not making any sense ends up having success. And I know it doesn't sound like that's much of a strategy, and that's hard-hitting research there, but I've learned from a lot of people, and a lot of times you see yourself scratching your head at a number. You have to ask yourself why. And the thing is, I know it's the CFL, and I know you and I laugh about some of the people that for some of these books that are making these lines. But I will say, BC immediately seemed to be one of those ones that was like, okay, how can we not bet this? And even in a sport like CFL, for me, when I see a number and I'm way too excited to want to go bet it, I have to kind of hold myself and be like, hold on. Nothing is easy in betting. Even though we've had some great CFL seasons, we've found some great CFL bets. And so the look ahead line was -3 last week. It's great to have these look ahead lines. So off BC getting the backdoor cover and Winnipeg losing outright, it's just 2.5 now at some books, including FanDuel we're seeing right now. I'm a little confused by that. So I probably would stay off the side. I do lean to the BC side, but again, something is weird here in this game. Winnipeg, I don't know the style they're going to use. I'll tell you the play I really like, and this is a plug your nose and don't even probably watch the game. Give me the under. Give me the under 51.5, because this, to me, is something where you can actually look at what you've seen this season so far. I said power rankings mean you have to look at preseason thoughts and not just the first 2 weeks. However, offensive struggles, injuries, those are things you can certainly notice. Winnipeg, to me, hasn't looked like that dynamite team that has the deep ball right now. I have a feeling that they're going to make this game very boring. They're going to make this game greasy. It's going to be a battle of the trenches. They're going to run the ball. It's going to be short dump offs. I don't know. The odds makers having this one at 51.5, maybe they expect Winnipeg to find that offense, find that deep ball offense that they have, and they can throw it. I know what big play VA can do. I know that these guys can make plays, but 52 points is still a lot of points to get to in the CFL. So that might be my bold pick of the week, is taking these two teams to go under. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, 52 is a lot of points, right? You kind of see these lines all open up around 48 the start of the year, which is another reason why I think that Montreal-Ottawa game is a great underplay, just because you have that placeholder number, and you have a Montreal team that's going to hold Ottawa. It's going to be tough for them to get 20 points, right? Both BC and Winnipeg have kind of shown you that it's tough for them to get points on their own. Definitely not as high scoring as they have been the last few years. Lions got off to a really slow start this past weekend, and Winnipeg just seems to be kind of misfiring. Maybe you just ride this under until you see them prove you wrong.
That's the thing. I mean, we have to see when they can click. Once a team starts to click, then maybe we'll start to look the other way. Edmonton and Toronto. We have Toronto off the bye week. Interesting that some places have pushed this one down. I think based on what I've seen on social media, this might be our first head-to-head of the week. But Edmonton here, are they a team that you want to look at again in this similar point spread range?
Well, you never want to be looking for Edmonton. They kind of just find you.
They're just there. They're there.
Yeah. I'm not on anything right now. I think this line should be a little bit lower than it is. So if it pops up to 7, I'm gonna again jump on Edmonton. Argos moved big in week 1. We haven't really seen the overreaction to them from their week 1 win because they had the bye. So that's something to keep an eye on there as well. Cameron Dukes, again, I didn't think he was that bad of a quarterback as everybody else was saying going into the year. Hey, people can analyze the quarterback a lot better than I can, especially some former quarterbacks that cover the CFL. But just in my opinion, he looked kind of like he played well, but he just kind of looked unpolished out there. I need a few more good games out of him to move him up in my rankings. At this point, I can't even get the college where he's from right. I got my Lindsey Wilson mixed up with my Colorado School of Mines. I had Isaac Harker on the brain, I guess. But I think I'm going to be jumping on Edmonton if this Argos money comes in like it did in the first week.
To me, I'm going to really buy into the bye week. No pun intended. And I know it's early in the season, so people might think, okay, why do you care so much about a bye week? But again, I remember you and I both liked Toronto in week 1. And we talked about the number, and you talked about Dukes there for a second. I think just all around, this team is well-rounded. If he can even game manage, I don't think this Elks team has really seen, a team that's as well-rounded as, put it this way, I'm higher on Toronto than I am on Montreal. And I think you know that. And I think that we look at coming off the bye week, we look at Edmonton having to play their first road game of the season. We look at some of the mistakes that they've made, and I think Toronto would make them pay. I think the pressure Toronto is going to give their quarterback, I don't think Bethel Thompson will have much time in the pocket. I also think that the run game is going to be huge here for Kadeem Carey. I think that, again, I talked about betting on these running backs over their rushing yards against teams like the Elks. If they can establish the run, it will open things up for the passing game, and I feel like they're going to have a really good time. Got some agreement with me here. Dangerous when healthy. Toronto's O-line is solid, 2 great tackles. So I kind of like the first half more, but I'm going back and forth between the full game. The thing is about these full games, I haven't had best of luck with the first half, so I might just stick with the full game because sometimes you need a full game to cover a point spread that's that big, even if it's only 6. A perfect example of that is for the team with the jersey I'm wearing right now. You were at the game. Sometimes you need a whole game to cover a point spread like that. So Edmonton at home, getting 6 points, sign me up. Edmonton on the road against the team that's fresh off a bye week, I'll fade them. I'll look to bet against them in that situation. So we'll see if I'm putting too much onus on the bye week or not. Maybe I'm too high on the Argonauts. We'll find out. But I like that -5.5 number. And we always say shop around. There are 6s out there, so try and find a 5.5 if you can. Where was here we go. Tommy says, feels too easy on BC, live bet this game. And when he said that, I was like, you know what? That's a good reason to stay off the side because, I mean, whichever team scores the first touchdown, take the other team on the live spread. That game will be close. I do not. Can you agree with me that game probably won't be like a one-sided, lopsided game? Or do you think it actually has potential that someone could be blown out?
No, I would still be live betting if a 6-7 pops up on either side. I'd be jumping on it regardless, right? If I'm going to take a 3 on either side pregame, I'll take a 6 or 7 live and hope that the game kind of works itself out after that.
I'd love to see a team like Winnipeg score the first touchdown and see what number we can get on BC in the live game here. All right, obviously the rematch, Hamilton, Saskatchewan. I'll make it short and simple. I like the under in this game, and I've locked it in already. So here's the thing. I think I told you this before, but one thing I like to do in the CFL in these back-to-back spots is pretty much take the exact opposite of what we saw happen in the first leg of the back-to-back as far as the point spread. The team that didn't cover in the leg 1, I'll take them in game 2 if I'm getting the right number. But after the 2 of the top receivers on Saskatchewan getting injured, and they come back and win the game, they open as 2.5-point favorites at home. To me, that kind of makes me shake my head. I know the penalties aren't going to happen again in this week, and that could create more offense. I get that. But it also could negate some offense because a lot of times for Hamilton last week, they had drives extended because of boneheaded penalties from Saskatchewan. So I'm on under 50.5 here. We're seeing a lot higher of totals overall collectively as far as the average number this week. And I'm going to kind of bet down on it and go under. We saw overs have a really good start to the CFL, I believe, at a decent clip through 2 weeks. I'm going to go under for Hamilton, Saskatchewan. You mentioned your thoughts a little bit about the last game, but any bets locked in for this one?
I've bought a little bit of Saskatchewan 2.5 just because I'm assuming this line's going to move. Like they closed a 3-point favorite on the road in Hamilton. It doesn't make sense that they're laying fewer points at home. So I think this line will move. I don't think there's much between these two teams, like we said. And I think that home field kind of dictates that Saskatchewan should be getting more than a field goal. Just in general, if you're just travel alone should be a point, right? So I'm a little surprised this line hasn't moved this much. There has been a lot of rider money coming in on them. So at least in the first 2 weeks. So this kind of all points towards this going to the 3 and through the 3, I think, by the time they kick off.
This game, and again, with it being the last game of the week, we're curious to see how the movement takes place in this one, but also the game day movement. We've seen it. You've talked about it. The amount of times these games are getting hit on game day. I'm very curious to see Red Blacks Alouettes, where that game ends up at the close. Also curious with the Edmonton and Toronto game, where that one ends at the close. And we know for damn sure that Hamilton and Saskatchewan will not be 2.5 at the close. The question is, which way will it go? And I think that you hit it right on the head where you think that one will end up. So I will say this, for if anybody out there, if you guys can bet teasers, I gotta think that taking Montreal down and Saskatchewan up is a really good one. That's something that really sticks out to me. If you can do a 6-point teaser, or excuse me, Hamilton up, yeah,
or BC,
or BC, yeah. But I think that because I don't think Saskatchewan is going to blow out Hamilton by any means. I don't think they're capable of blowing anybody out based on what I've seen. They've had to come back in their first 2 games. So I'm undecided what I'm going to do with the Montreal game yet, but I've made it pretty clear I think they will win. So I'll try and figure out a way that I can capitalize on that. Whether it's me finding another dance partner for it, who knows? But the other day I had I think it was a French Open tennis wager parlayed with a UFC fight the night before. So it sounds crazy, but I mean, you got to you mix and match, and sometimes you can use 2 different sports to make yourself some money. So any closing thoughts before we wrap things up for week 3?
No, I thought that's important to mention the teasers there. Some books price them pretty wildly. I think even money at a couple of them for 6-point teasers, when in real life it's minus 120 you're hoping to get. So you look at that, what are they, minus 310 right now, money line, put them in a teaser, you're basically getting 285, 275 odds. So hey, this is the consensus number 1 team in the CFL, and all you need them to do is win. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? We'll find out this Thursday, guys. Make sure you follow us both on X. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe. If you're watching on X, retweet, show some love, and meet us here again next week on Tuesday live for some CFL betting talk. Shout out to all of you guys watching. Shout out to Tommy for being here with us, active in the live chat. We'll see you next week for CFL Week 4.